Welcome back, and today for this video we're going to be looking at section 2.2, which is histograms. So this picks up from where we left off in 2.1, which is all about frequency distributions. So now we're going to look at the visual representation of those tables. So a histogram is a graph consisting of bars of equal width drawn adjacent to each other, meaning without gaps. The horizontal scale represents classes of quantitative data values, and the vertical scale represents the frequencies. The heights of the bars correspond to the frequency values. So our example from before, if we had our pulse rates of females and males, so we have all our frequencies listed in here, so we can see all of our bars have the same value. Now, the one thing to keep in mind, if you have a histogram, this is a little different than a bar graph. A bar graph has spaces usually between the bars. A histogram does not. That's a very important feature of it. So don't make that mistake. All the bars have to be touching. Now in the case here, obviously there is no bar, but it's a infinitely thin bar of 0. So all the bars are touching in this case, so we do have a histogram. Now, as far as the labeling, the frequencies are pretty cut and dry. Whatever you have for frequencies, you want to make sure you go up high enough to cover all of your bars. So this one goes all the way up to 15. But as far as the horizontal part of it, we have 3 options. One of them is to use the class boundaries, and this is what we're going to use. You got class midpoints, which is okay, but you could be a little bit off with those. So, and then the lower class limits, which again, it's okay, but like I said, I am a bigger advocate of using the class boundaries as the idea, or as the main way to do it. So again, because there's no gaps, you can kind of see, okay, well, this one's, if you're using the first class boundary of 59.9, that's your starting point, and then the end of the first one is also the start of the second one. So that's why there's no gaps. With midpoints, it just seems a little clunkier, and you don't get that across necessarily. So boundaries is the way to go with histograms. Along with that, we could have a relative frequency histogram. So remember, relative means percentages. So all of your percentages should be on the left-hand side now instead of the actual frequencies. So everything else is the same. You still got the same class boundaries across the bottom, and the heights look relatively the same as well. But again, it's relative because it's based off of the frequencies. So be careful. Make sure you read and know exactly what they want. So let's try a few. So we got our first one here that says, using the following frequency distribution, construct its histogram. So we got the ages of U.S. presidents when inaugurated. So we're starting at 40, going all the way up to 69. So this is obviously a little bit old because we have presidents that are older than 70 at this point. And we might have even older ones in the future. So at any rate, so we have our different classes, we have our frequencies. So if we want to draw a proper histogram, we want to use class boundaries. So how many boundaries should we have? What did we say? There's always one extra. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we better have 7 boundaries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. And so we always start with the second one. So what's the second class boundary for this one? So remember, the end of the first and the start of the second. What's the halfway point between those? 44.5 is correct. So that's always the second one though. But now how do we get the other ones? What's the shortcut for that? Hopefully you're screaming class width, class width. So what's the class width? Remember, you have to go vertically to determine class width. So from 40 to 45 is 5 units apart. 5 units, 5 units, 5 units, 5 units. So 5 is the magic number. So we can use that to generate all the rest. So if we subtract 5, we can get 39.5. And if we add 5, and we keep adding 5, Keep adding 5. Oops. Helps if you add 5 correctly. And then we get all the way to 69.5. And remember, as long as that last boundary is a little bit after the last, the upper class limit of the last class, then you're good to go. And you can kind of see that all these other ones fit in the cracks. So that's what we want. All right, so that's the hard part. Now we got to actually do a little drawing. Now you can kind of see that you have a little bit of a grid here to help you with your drawing, so you don't have to be a perfect artist. But if we want to start labeling our class boundaries across the bottom, so we always like to have the histogram start right tight next to the vertical axis. So let's put right underneath the first, the vertical axis are 39.5, and then each dash afterwards gets its own number. So we can get 54.5. And 69.5. So there's all of our boundaries. And again, you want it right underneath those dashes. And now the other thing that I'm always a nerd about is labels. So remember, this is going to be your ages. If I have lead. And so that's going to be your label for the bottom. Now on the vertical side, remember, is our frequency. So let's go back and take a look. Our highest frequency was 13, so we want to make sure we at least get up to there. Now, depending on what's provided for you, you might have to scale it. So you might have to go by 2s or by 3s or something like that. But let's see how many boxes we got. I think we might have enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yeah, we got plenty of boxes. So each box can be 1 unit. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You don't have to label every single one. You can go by 2s if you want. So 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. And then again, don't forget the label on the side. So we got frequencies over here. And now we're ready to draw our bars. So the first bar, which is got a frequency of 2. So let's put that in here. And don't snap your lead every time, Lee. But I'm not having success. All right, so there's the first bar. The next bar, you can see it. I don't have to scroll all the way up, do I? It's 7. So let's go up to a 7. Draw that in. Then we got to go up to 12. Then 13. Now, if you're a really bad drawer, you can use rulers, obviously, and make it pretty. And then another 7. And then a 3. And so there we have our histogram. So, not too terrible, right? Again, those class boundaries are really the most important part of it, is just getting those calculations down correctly and labeling and all that good stuff. So, all right. So let's see what we got on the next page. We got some more. Now, I think what I'm going to do is stop the video here, and I'll let you pick it up in the next one. So see you in just a minute.